Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 9, Episode 57 of our weekly Q&A video / podcast. If you are on YouTube right now, you can check out this on many major podcasting platforms. I don't know, I can never say all because I have no clue how many there are, but there's an RSS feed link, so I think any good podcast platform will let you directly add via RSS link. So you can get us on all the platforms. You just might have to do a little bit of legwork for it. Is what I'll maybe say. By checking out the links in the description. And if you are on the podcast right now, you probably already know about our YouTube channel. And you don't need to watch it if you don't want to.
Well, speaking of watching, though.
Yeah.
So this team in a recent line of weekly multiplayer teams on every Q&A.
Yeah.
This is the Arkham Knight Catwoman team because this is Arkham Knight Catwoman's week in the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to point out something because we've done a bunch of... maybe I'll add the playlist in the description, but we've done a bunch of Arkham Knight Catwoman teams. This is my absolute favorite damage over time dealer. And I want to point out one thing that we haven't shown before about how she's so good at handling... Problematic is not exactly the right word, but difficult opponents. And one is you're going to see Blackest Night team. And the strategy, because Catwoman leans so hard on doing damage over time, in this case, we rely on Arkham Knight and Arkham Knight Batgirl to do most of the damage. And we save Arkham Knight Catwoman for when we think, one, she'll do enough damage to knock out the person, but two, so that her first tag in is the one who's saved because it doesn't trigger the damage over time with Master's Death card.
Yeah.
But the second thing that I'm going to really point out and highlight is how good she is at handling New 52 Shazam. So I think because of his ability to tag out when his health gets below 25%, and that if you get him down to 25%, you can't knock him out on that go. If you go from 26% to 0, you can knock him out. But if you go from 26 to 24, he will not be knock-outable. He'll be basically... not invulnerable, but just, you know what I mean? What is it? There's a word for, is there a word for that? Is there a phrase? Something? I don't know. But he's not invulnerable because he'll still take damage down to 1. So the cool thing is...
There's like a thing in Pokemon, right? If you're like sturdy or whatever, like the first hit that would knock you out knocks you down to 1 HP. Right.
But he's more than that. Like he gets knocked down to... That was Shedinja or something.
No, that's only crits even deal damage to you. There's an ability that like keeps you alive because Shedinja only ever has 1 HP.
Right, but he can't get knocked out unless he's the type.
Yeah, unless it's super effective. Yeah.
Right, it's super effective.
That's different.
Yeah. But I'm saying it's like that where he might be down to New 52 Shazam might be down to 1, but until he tags back in, you can't knock him out, and when he tags back in, he's invulnerable. Yeah. So the key is either that there's nobody else to tag in, he's the last one, which you can't control. You can't make him be the last person to tag in, and especially if he's the first person, he's trouble. But how she handles him is. Because your Special 2, Arkham Knight Catwoman Special 2 does so much damage, when he's the first person, you don't do your Special 2. Special 1, Special 1, and in this case, his huge health pool works against him because he doesn't get down to 25%, even if he doesn't block. Yeah. And then when you've tagged in Arkham Knight Catwoman once, done 2 Special 2s, that's usually enough time to tag in Arkham Knight. And that tag in, he decides he wants out. And he finishes bleeding out off screen. Because of Arkham Knight Catwoman's passive.
Okay.
And so he's bleeding out off screen down to 1 stinking health. Yeah. So then you just have to sneeze on him. Yeah. And you knock him out. You don't trigger his passive, even if he has an opponent.
That's pretty fun.
Teammate. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So I think this is... I'm just, again, playing more and more with it. I'm just loving... This is my absolute favorite damage over time character. She's so good. Yeah. Okay. Now you wanted to say something about what you've been doing this week that's not Injustice.
Yeah, I went out and I saw this AR art exhibition.
Augmented reality.
Yeah. AR. And so it's through my phone, and it was a bunch of like little AR installations. And the whole point is, I did this in Toronto, but there's a bunch of different places around the world that are hosting it. And the idea is that you download an app. And then it's got like a little sort of map on it, and it uses your GPS. And when you show up in the right place for the AR exhibit, you can scan and do a quick sort of rough 3D scan of the ground. Okay. And then click a button, and display the AR exhibit in front of you. And then you can like check it out, you know, kind of like walk around.
So you gotta look at it through your
phone. Your phone. And so what was interesting is that I am not a big fan, and I think I've been sort of vocal about being very kind of like anti NFT, anti that kind of like Web3 crypto stuff.
Right.
And then that sort of extended to kind of the metaverse and the conceptualization of the metaverse.
Okay.
Right. And so what I find really interesting is, you know, there was a really cool video recently by Folding Ideas called...
Folding Ideas?
Just another YouTuber.
Oh, okay.
Called Decentraland, or sorry, The Metaverse is the Dead Mall. Looking at some of the criticisms of the metaverse and what it is. And so what's interesting is that this is like an AR art exhibit, right? Mm-hmm. It's not the first time it's been done, but this is essentially one version of the metaverse. The idea that there's a real world, and the real world is somehow intrinsically linked with a virtual space, right? And intertwined with it. And then you interact with sort of the virtual space using the technology, which is in this case the phone, as sort of a portal into this, you know, alternate reality space. And, you know, we've seen a bunch of versions of this. We've seen a bunch of stuff like this. There was like an NFT project that was supposed to be a furniture store that was on a beach in AR, and then you could buy furniture from it, and it would both show up at your door as a physical product, but then you'd also get like an NFT. Mm-hmm. And so one of the points that Folding Ideas makes in that video is that all of the sort of metaverse NFT stuff is like not a very good product, right? There's a really big promise of it, and then the actual experience of it is not very good.
Right.
And so I went out and I went on this, you know, walking tour, and it's about an hour and a half long, and I gave up on it partway through because the problem was it wasn't very good. Right. There were some artists that I recognized. Ai Weiwei, I had seen some of his like works before. Anyways, he's a Chinese artist. He does some really interesting stuff. And so, like, you know, for his, it was a gilded bird cage. And it was a digital reconstruction of a real bird cage that he had built, apparently, as an installation, if I understood the description right. And the idea of the original was that you're supposed to be able to walk into it, you know, go through the turnstile, and it was supposed to be an exploration of cages as protection, as, you know, like incarceration and holding people against their will, and prison. The dynamics. The prison, yeah, so it's cages.
I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me.
But it's the multiplicity of ways that we can view cages and walls and barriers, right? Mm-hmm. And it was constructed in a garden. You're supposed to be able to walk through the turnstiles, look at the different like sections of it and stuff. Mm. And then if you're inside, you can look out onto the gardens from the perspective of like a caged like animal or something else, right? Of somebody in a cage. And so I'm like, that's a kind of interesting idea, right? Yeah. But you actually go to the exhibit, and it's this kind of poorly tracked, sliding around, relatively low resolution 3D render of like this golden cage, and then as soon as you try to like walk into it or like interact with it in any way, the limited sort of floor tracking gives out, and it's sliding in weird places, right? You know, so I was going on this walk with a friend, and my friend also got like a little motion sick looking at it. Right. It was like not that cool. We were like looking down at our phones and like these like green spaces, and I was just like, this is kinda crap.
So what you're saying is it was worse than Pokemon.
It was worse than Pokemon Go, yeah. And so the thing that I was thinking about is, because you can think about it as, you know, just people trying to do an interesting mixed media thing for an art exhibit. And I think, you know, in one sense it was. But I thought about how, you know, almost any piece of art, like the graffiti and the murals that I was seeing on my way back, was mostly cooler than the stuff I was seeing.
It was more effective.
It was more effective. It was more interesting and engaging. You know, one of them was the best one, and I don't remember the artist, which is unfortunate, was a 3D model of that artist that was had a dance that had been generated based on, like, the random movements of the model was generated based off of it was like a brainwave scan of them. So it was this weird kind of jerky conceptual thing, and they were sort of like a producer, like a music producer / artist. And so they had like the techno beat, and then they had this guy jittering and doing weird stuff. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. That's a little interesting. And that's also something that, you know, you need have digitally, right? You can't have like a physical thing doing that.
Right.
And the problem was that I would have rather been at home and watching a video of it, you know?
Yeah, that's a shame.
And there was nothing really that it offered. And the actual like walk itself, I think if it was supposed to be in a botanical garden or whatever, it would have been a lot cooler. But the actual walk itself, because it was in Toronto, it went from the MoCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art, and it went to High Park in Toronto. And the problem is, in the middle of that, there's like a 20 or 30 minute walk with no installations along the entire length of it.
Oh, okay.
Just in like a neighborhood. And that's the point where we gave up, because we saw like 4 or 5.
Right.
And I was like, none of these have really grabbed me. I feel like I'm just staring at my phone on a walk, which feels like the kind of worst way to go for a walk.
You know what that reminds me of? That time we went to Nuit Blanche downtown.
Yeah.
And most of it was pretty tight.
Yeah.
Like close together.
Yeah.
And some of it you had to walk a distance away. And that was the least sort of, I don't want to say least effective, but maybe the most unpleasant, the one that sort of pulled you away from it, made you think, am I done now?
It was the hardest to justify to yourself.
Yeah. But then you mentioned the dancing. The best was not one of the installations.
Yeah.
But it felt like it wasn't one of the installations because it felt less polished.
It was entirely unclear whether these people were actually associated with the thing, or whether they just knew of the... Because for anybody who doesn't know, the context of Nuit Blanche is that it is like a Toronto-wide art thing where people basically set up and do like a kind of like a one night only art display, and
I don't know when the last year they did it was either.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
And I think it started with like the university arts crowd in Toronto, because there's a couple of universities in Toronto, and so it's kind of supposed to be a little weird and a little offbeat, and just supposed to be cool and interesting. And so the coolest thing that we saw, there was a lot of official stuff, and it's gotten pretty big. There was like a Stranger Things thing one year that was official from Netflix that was really sort of high budget, high effort, where they made a little stretch of the Upside Down. And the coolest thing that we've ever seen at a Nuit Blanche was these 2 dudes in luchador masks, and a third guy in the back of a box truck with DJ equipment, where they were DJing this like sort of weird ethereal beat, and the 2 dudes were like dance fighting. They were doing like a weird interpretive dance fight, and then there was a third guy standing to the side who just kind of yelling. He would just go oh, and he was also in a luchador mask. He was like flexing and stuff, and then afterwards they just closed up the box truck, hung around for a couple minutes, and then kind of wandered off, and it was just in like an alley somewhere that we happened to walk past. And my gut instinct was, it felt rough around the edges to the point where I could not imagine that was like official. I think they just decided to do a thing.
So I do want to say though, I'm normally not a big fan of interpretive dance.
Yeah.
It was entertaining, and it was compelling in a way that I've never experienced with dance.
It felt really special because it felt so intrinsically ephemeral and weird and surreal.
It was raw, man.
Yeah.
Like the whole... Like, there was a real, like,
they weren't doing it for money.
Right.
There's no way to commercialize this product.
Right.
Because they didn't tell anybody about it, and they just showed up, or not tell anybody. Yeah, so it was really cool. And that's the other thing that I thought, is that almost every single thing I saw anytime I've been to Nuit Blanche, because I've been a couple times, was a lot cooler than that art exhibit. And these were from artists who I've seen cool stuff from before.
Right.
So I thought better of them. And I know that they're capable of doing really cool stuff, and sometimes it was just a photo scan of their artwork with like a really like light amount of extra work done to sort of make it work, and none of it interested me or engaged me at all. Like, me and my friend were both feeling like it was a little it sucked, and it made my friend feel a little sick, and I didn't feel sick afterwards, but I just felt
there's no joy to it,
very underwhelmed. And the thing that I really thought about it was, because you can view it as sort of an art installation thing, but what I was thinking about was how it feeds into narratives and branding, and the way that it creates value without actually being something of value. And to explain that, if you go on an artist's website,
right,
and you look at the projects they've done, the collections they've done, the work that they've done,
right.
If somebody says, I was part of, a multi-continent AR art exhibit that was displayed in the botanical gardens, including like the London Botanical Garden, whatever, alongside artists like Ai Weiwei, whatever, blah blah blah, right? All of a sudden you go, oh, that's cool. That's a big project. That's a cool thing to be involved with. That's like awesome. It adds legitimacy both to the idea of AR artwork, but also it is something for the artist to put on their resume.
Right.
And the, museum gets to say that they hosted this exhibit. There was some signs in the area saying that there's an exhibit here, so people go, oh, maybe I'll check that out, whatever. And then it's a big file, so like nobody probably downloaded on data, right? Nobody showed up, didn't realize it was happening, and downloaded it.
Right.
You would have to like find Wi-Fi, and so it's like a lot of extra work. There's like a sort of a pretty high barrier to entry for somebody who's not interested in doing it. And then, the exhibit's going to be gone at some point. It's going to be done.
Yes.
And the only thing that'll be on record is two things. The sort of people who have put it somewhere, right? Maybe if it's on the museum's website, the people who are putting it on their resume. And then maybe, people who took a picture or a short video of it and posted it, which is the coolest thing they saw probably. And also you are seeing it from the perspective of the actual camera lens. So you are seeing it,
idealized,
real and vital, as real as any video of anything you've ever seen.
Better
Whereas for us, we were standing in a field looking at my screen and then kind of moving it around and then going, huh? And it like there was no effect. And so the interesting thing is, I think that thing as a product creates value for the artist. It creates value for the idea of AR. It is sort of one version of and one conceptualization of the metaverse. So it's a way of sort of generating like buzz and hype and perceived value. And then for people like me, the people who actually experience it, it was not entertaining at all. It felt like nothing. And so that's what I was thinking about when I was there. I was thinking about the ways that a lot of the current sort of tech stuff that people are getting really excited about is essentially a hype train built on creating value. And I'm not going to ascribe that sort of intention to any of the people associated with this specific thing, because I think if there's any value in it, it is in artistic or entertainment experiences. I can see ways that like AR augmented art could be cool, and ways like AR augmented like entertainment products could be really cool. So I'm not saying that any of these people have such like a mercenary perspective of it, but I was looking at it and thinking about, in this form right now, all this is good at is generating value for the people who don't actually who aren't actually experiencing it. Because it has done nothing for me, the person who's actually, showing up and doing the thing. So I just thought that was a little interesting. So that's my thoughts on that.
And it might be that we're just a few years, because if it is, I mean, I remember some of the same criticisms of Oculus. That it was, I mean, it wasn't as bad in the same way, but that the experience was very unpleasant for people until they got that last little bit of the synchronization between the movement and the visual inputs.
I think for me, what it is that I agree that there is a potential for AR to be really cool and interesting. The phone is not the place for it. Nobody, I mean, we use our phones a huge amount. Our phones are really important to us, but they are not sort of a portal to anything, You can get lost in content on your phone, but if you think about the ways that you consume media on your phone, you are looking at flat text, displayed sort of normally, and you are looking at maybe like videos, curated videos of other people. There is almost no time ever that I want to have my phone and the actual like gyroscopic position of it have like be a meaningful like layer between like me and the world. It's like not a pleasant experience, even if you think about like recording things versus just experiencing them, when you like take a picture or a video of something, even if you really get used to it and you whip out your camera to whenever anything interesting is happening around you, the better experience is always to just look at it and experience it. There's value created for you when you're actually taking a video of something, but that's never the thing that you want to do most, That's never the intrinsic drive. If you could just have a video of it passively, you would never look at your phone. You would never choose to look at your phone. And I think that, it's the same with AR stuff. It's the same with like any sort of conceptualization of the metaverse that involves real physical traversal through space. And,
it just needs to be integrated better. I mean, if Google Glass had done a better job of I guess, marketing. Well, just being adopted.
Yeah.
I think that would be like a good use case of it.
Yeah.
Because then you wouldn't have to be working so hard with your hand, holding a phone, looking at this small screen, as opposed to looking at the full view that you can get through glasses.
Yeah. And, you know, I think Pokemon Go was a relatively successful, like, sort of version of that conceptualization of the metaverse and involved physical spaces. And an important point for Pokemon Go is you spend as little time as possible actually, like, looking at your phone as a lens into the real world. That wasn't how it worked. That wasn't the point of it. Right?
Right.
And so anyways, those are sort of my uncollected... I've thought about these. I've talked about them a little bit, but relatively loosely organized thoughts about all of this stuff. Right. So I just think it's interesting. My overall verdict on AR stuff is a big thumbs down. And this is as somebody who is really interested sort of in the underlying tech and the capacity of new tech, and who, you know, would have thought AR was really cool at different times.
Right.
I still want it to be cool. I still want it to be good. Right. And I think there's a lot of stuff that I can think about that I would be really excited for. But especially with the sort of ways that people are talking about and supporting AR right now, it feels like it has become very sort of commercialized. A lot of these ideas have been tied to like speculative
commercialized or exploited
market stuff. And exploited, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's the connotation with exploited that's a little bit stronger than commercialized.
It's true. And in a way, I think a lot of the shine has come off of these things that I would have otherwise maybe thought were cool and been more excited and enthusiastic about, because of the way that people are just trying to generate value at the expense of, you know, creating anything that is actually useful to the people who are using it.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So our first comment this week...
that we teased from last week.
Yeah. Comes from ThinkRice GNS. They say, I'm experiencing a glitch, brackets Android right now. It's March 31 in my time zone. I racked up 32 last laugh tickets, and I was performing the refund last laugh tickets glitch to try to get at least 2 pieces of the set. I managed to get the Initiate Blade in one go, but none of the other pieces, so I kept going, and now I'm only getting companion cards. I've reset multiple times, ensured that my time was set to automatic, cleared and restored data, but I continue to get the companion cards. I'm not sure if this is a known glitch or anything. Not really an inconvenience, because I can just wait until next time League of Assassin comes around. Do you know if this is something that I've caused on myself, or if everybody is experiencing it right now?
So, I guess the short answer is yes, just you. Not everybody. And whether you cause it for yourself or not is, I guess it depends. So the interesting thing is, the default, if you never connect to the internet, the default gear set on Survivor is the companion gears.
Yeah.
So in order to switch from companion gears to something else, there is some moment, which we don't know, during your time in Survivor, that the game on your device says, hey, this is what you're going to get in last laugh tickets.
Yeah, because otherwise, you know, if that moment doesn't happen, we know that you just get companion gears.
Right. So it's important that when you're doing the glitch that you turn off your internet late enough so that it keeps letting you get the advertised gear and not companion gear, but early, so that you don't end up losing the last laugh tickets if it's not something that you want and you get to reset it.
Yeah, that you aren't locking in your reward.
Right. So, definitely only on your device, and really the key is your internet connection.
Yeah, because it sounds like you've troubleshooted most of the other things that could be giving you trouble, especially like the time setting, right?
Yeah, and I don't even know the time setting is even that important for Survivor.
Oh, that's true.
For the rewards, at least. It is for your time countdown timer. And I've always said, too, that when your clock is not right and you're connected to the server, you're going to set yourself up to screw up what's available in, you know, when your challenge comes on, or the Phantom Zone, you know, just any events that are supposed to be calendar or time related.
Yeah.
So that's the short answer. That's a longer answer. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we apologize actually for getting to this so late. By this time, you probably already figured out what it was. But
hopefully,
just in case you haven't, if this is a problem that you've set yourself up with, it might even just be that you're in an area where the internet connection is so patchy.
Yeah.
The moments where your device, the game on your device, is trying to access the server for information, it's just cutting out, and then it just goes with the default of Suicide Squad companion.
Yeah, but your best bet for fixing it would be checking your internet connection and figuring out how to make it more consistent.
Yeah. I like this next question. This is my favorite question of the whole week.
Ooh, okay. So this one comes from Cameron107.
It's not even a question. It's a
friend of the show.
Yeah.
They say, first of all, happy 10th anniversary of Injustice. Hard to believe that this game has been around for so long. Secondly, as a former, quote, hater of Apokolips Darkseid, I have some thoughts on him. To your point about him not being from a, quote, universe, it's a real shame since his design is directly based on the New 52, so he could have had some synergies going for him, but I think he has some potential as a support. My main problem with gear-shattering setups that use Claw of Horus to chain with Master's Death card in Shatter 3 gears is that it only works on your second tag in. The only workaround is having your Gear Shatterer in the first slot and either doing a special or some basic attacks, in which case you can shatter 3 gears immediately the next time you tag in. Doing basic attacks for the sake of it seems pointless most of the time, but for Darkseid, 2 of his combo ender effects increase his and his teammates' damage. Cursed gives 100% crit chance, and Bleed increases damage by 20%. Lifesteal is kind of unnecessary in this build, but it's only a 33% chance, so 66% of the time, his combo ender will boost damage. The third gear is up to personal preference. Astral Harness can help you land your combo ender, but you kind of waste the shield. LexCorp Helmet can chain damage over time to Master's Death card, make him tankier, and it gives 50% crit boost, which goes well with the crit chance you get from Cursed. There's very few teams that can take advantage of this, but I do use this setup occasionally. The main thinking behind it was that the two solve each other's problems. The gear shattering loadout has to do basics, and Darkseid wants to do basics.
So there's a few reasons why I love this comment.
It's a great comment.
Sure. I love how it gets to the point, right? The point really is the overall impression, the gestalt of what you get from Darkseid is that Darkseid wants to do basics. 100%.
Yeah.
He's got bad specials for 1 and 2. Number 2 can only knock on a last hit.
Yeah.
Number 1, if the opponent blocks, they block even more because I think at least one of the hits he doesn't complete a special one. Mm-hmm. So he does even less damage, and the amount of damage is peanuts.
Yeah. So
he's a bad specialist, but he... Sorry, so here's let me just go back to this. Why I love this comment even better is that sentence. The only workaround is having your gear shatter in the first slot and either doing a special or some basic attacks, in which case you can shatter 3 gears immediately the next time you tag in.
Yeah.
Even in first slot, I always tagged anybody out immediately if they had Master's Death card to try to tag him in again. So I never realized that doing anything first with the basic or specials would mean that you wouldn't need a second tag in.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I've been playing for years. This is part of the reason why. And I also love that this is the recognition of trying to make something out of not something great.
It is probably more concise, clearly explained, and informative than any similarly length content on our channel, with very few exceptions, if any.
See, the problem is, though, that knowing this, I still hate Darkseid. So here's the problem. He's not any better than anybody else deadweight. When you've got a Gear Shatterer loadout, you don't need him to do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And trying to make him do more damage. The tap combo is interesting because absolutely right. Astral Harness is wasted on him in first slot.
Yeah.
You lose the first invulnerability, and if you don't have Astral Harness to open it up and be really close to the opponent, you're not going to get combo ender half the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if only half the time you get a combo ender, and what are we talking? Like 1/6 of the time?
Yeah.
You get, how often do you get the... I can't even remember now. That you get the cursed.
It's about a third of the time, I think.
Is it a third?
Isn't
Something
it
is
a
6.
third and a third?
No, it's not. It's like one is a 6, one is a third, and one is a half.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's still a shame.
Well, we can guess because the lifesteal is a third chance, right?
So it's going to be either a half or a 6.
Yeah.
I think it's a 6 because the cursed is the best thing to have. Bleed is only 20%. And if you're reducing that by half, each one of those, you're still not getting the benefit of Darkseid. So effectively, you're No, but I think that really sums up the issue with him. I think Darkseid's basic attacks are based on the same model as Zod.
Yeah.
So his poses and everything is just like Zod. I like the idea of leveraging Master's Death card because absolutely, when you tag him in, not only do you get to do the Gear Shatter effect, you're also doing the damage over time effect multiple times with the Master's Death card. So I like those kind of synergies. I like those kind of ideas. And it's so thoughtful. Like it's not only is it thoughtful, but it's based on a kernel of information. Like if I go to a conference and I sit and listen on a panel, if I learned one thing from that panel, I consider it a win. Mm-hmm. And out of this, not only is it an interesting discussion point about Darkseid,
but you learn something.
I learned something that's really interesting, and I can use it not playing Darkseid.
Yeah.
Because I still hate Darkseid.
It's a generalizable piece of information.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I guess the other difficulty is that you probably, if you're in the first slot with Master's Death card, unless you're willing to waste a slot on Ra's al Ghul Scimitar, or you've got Batgirl, or you've got a character like Arkham Origins Batman that's going to start with a bar or a couple bars of power.
Yeah.
Then you're making it the gear loadout a little bit less effective, so it really requires you to do a basic combo.
Yeah.
And I guess I should do some testing to figure out how much basic, whether it's like a one full combo, or if it's blocked where I need to do a couple of hits.
Yeah.
Definitely. So thank you. That was great.
You put us on to something new.
Yeah.
Do we want to do one sort of more quick one before we finish up here?
I guess so. It's not even really an answer, but sure, we'll do that.
So James Pulley asks, using Earth 2 Hawkgirl makes my game crash. Any suggestions?
Well, I'll tell you, Earth 2 Hawkgirl doesn't make our game crash. I actually tested her out, played around with her a bit. I think it's your game. And the key would be when it crashes. The only way...
what stage? Is it like interacting with her in any way? Yeah. Or is it like when the fight loads with her on the team, or what? So
I am feeling... I'm actually... I don't have a lot of free time, but I'm feeling kind of generous. So James Pulley, if you want to reach out to us and send us your account information, I would love to play around with it and test it out. I mean, obviously...
especially in seeing if it does the same thing on our device.
Right. And so, if you're willing to take the chance on us, I mean, the idea of sharing passwords and stuff, I think that's against the terms of service.
Yeah, but you can send the information to bdckr@hotmail.com.
Yeah, I'd be really interested, because now it's been so long since we've had a chance to play around with glitches and stuff.
Yeah.
That part of my brain that I like to scratch by trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
That I haven't been able to scratch that for a while.
Yeah. So that's the sort of open thing, and our best guess is the character is corrupted, right?
Yes.
The oversell glitch has made getting copies of characters make your game crash at certain points, right? I imagine if there was some sort of file missing for actually like displaying the character, that might make your game crash.
Well, and I think this is the one thing I want to point out about when we talk about the account bleeding. It's less likely to have this exact problem. But it's still a possibility that when you have an account bleed, that one account is going to mess up the other way one for a particular character that's there or not there. So this could have happened from that.
Yeah. And then the other question would be, is Earth 2 Hawkgirl showing up on an enemy team making your game crash? Is it only on your team, right?
Right.
If you ever, and that's a little bit harder because I don't know if, off the top of my head, I don't know or think necessarily that there's any single player Earth 2 Hawkgirls that you have to face specifically. So you need to sort of luck into it in multiplayer.
Right.
Because you can't test it with a mirror match because your game would already be crashing from your own.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the theory, and the way to fix it, or the way to avoid it would be not using multiple accounts, right? The way to fix it is not clear without being able to sort of get your hands on it.
Right.
And test it for ourselves. So yeah.
So I know it's risky for James Pulley, but I feel like I'm being generous with the little time that I've got, that I would love to. It's an interesting enough problem that I want to try troubleshooting it.
Yeah. So hit us up if you want. To finish up, I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah.
So to finish up, I'd like to give a shout out to Eliza Sigma Grindset Caton. She's working hard. Sigma Grindset. It's an ironic term. What, Sigma? It's so the alpha beta dichotomy, that kind of like bro-y fake thing that people say about wolves that is not even true of wolves. People invented a term that is meant to be kind of like a lateral move from alpha called a sigma, And the point of Sigmas is that they have a greater sense of independence. So alphas and betas are inherently tied into sort of a power structure, whereas Sigmas are lone wolf kind of characters. It's already very funny.
Lone wolf or anarchists? Like when you say out of the hierarchy.
It's unclear. Different people use it different ways.
Okay.
But there's a meme that is developed in a humorous way of referring to yourself as a Sigma, because it's very funny. I think in part it was meant for people who wanted to feel sort of good about themselves still, who could not in good conscience call themselves an alpha because maybe there wasn't anybody around them that they were the natural leader of.
Oh, right. Funny. Okay.
But there's sort of this meme cachet built around the term Sigma, and then the term Sigma combines that in this sort of like finance thing, like the chase your money sort of paper, like make that paper thing, where the Sigma grind set is supposed to be, you're working hard all the time, you got your nose to the ground, so you're trying to make a ton of money. It's very kind of like business dude terminology.
Okay.
So that's the context of that, and I've killed the meme now by explaining it to you. It's no longer funny, but shout out to Eliza Sigma Grindset Caton. She's working hard.
Very good.
Yeah. And we'd also like to give a huge thank you to all of our lovely supporters on Patreon.
And that would be Korey Ashcraft at the top tier last word, Alexis M at the Your Message Here tier, and Michael Devries, Irvin Ruiz, Hoshi 127, and Drew Chapman supporting us on the credited level. And all the other generous people that you'll see on your screen who have given us some support during this pandemic.
Yeah, so thank you so much for your support, lovely folks. And thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.